The mad genius behind Mythic, aiming only for annihilation and self-destruction. Hello! This video acts as a guide to one of the most game-changing characters in Morimens, doll Inferno, aka GDoll. I'll be covering who she is, how to get her, and what she does. GDoll is a Chaos Awakener among the currently 4 Genesis units and appears in Arc 2. She answers the question, what if Doll was fucked up and evil? Let's get straight to the point. What makes GDoll a game-changing unit? Borderline infamous. This right here. Madness Infection. This stacks with every Overexalt, or Pete, Overexalt, for the rest of the battle. 10 stacks with every OE, cumulative. This is why people advise getting her to OE, simply because it can boost your entire team. I'll get into this a bit more later on in the video, but for now, let's go back to what she is and where to get her. What's a Genesis unit? Okay, Genesis units are special awakeners, most from an alternate timeline or dimension, being some of the most powerful characters in-game, at least currently, as far as I know. These awakeners also have illustrations animated with Live 2D, and it's pretty awesome. Genesis units are harder to come by, with GDoll and G-Murphy stuck behind limited banners. G-Helic can also be unlimited, but has a low chance in standard as well. G-Ramona, on the other hand, love you girl, is obtainable by having Ramona, completing the G-Ramona side story, and 60 standard cores. GDoll kicked off Arc 2. She's pretty cool. Her unique talent is Path of Annihilation. At turn start, GDoll gets a stack of her own personal status, Finale. When she has 10 stacks of Finale and Exalts, she is then considered to be in Finale form. This is her stance change, essentially, and she goes from Healing Juice to Poison Juice. GDoll entering Finale form puts a unique card, Illusion's End, into your hand. Illusion's End takes a percentage chunk of damage from all enemies present when used, as well as healing you at OE. Let's go over her skills, Rouse, and Exalt. Her first skill, Self-Destruction, has you choose between 2 statuses that will be inflicted on the enemy, Elation or Curse. Elation applies vulnerable to all enemies. It needs E1, with an increase in damage amplification. Curse applies weakness to all enemies. It also needs E1, also decreasing their strength for the turn. Her second skill, Fate's Descent, recovers HP and adds more instances of HP recovery for every 50 ailments she currently has when used. If she's in Finale form, this skill applies stacks of poison to all enemies, and additional poison for every 50 ailments she has. Her Rouse, Soul Blight Rouse, recovers HP the turn that it's used and gives additional ailments. If she's in Finale form, she triggers 50% of the enemy's poison instead. Her regular Exalt, Terminal of Truth and Abyss, applies poison to all enemies and temporarily increases the team's damage amplification by 50%. In Finale form, she draws 3 cards, gives 3 Arithmetica, and increases her own ailments limit by 50, up to 3 times. GDoll is often called game-changing, quote-unquote, specifically for her Overexalt, meaning you need 7 additional copies of her for 8 total. Otherwise, she can be viable, but is pretty standard. So let's go over her passives. E1, Self-Destruct applies vulnerable with Elation and weakness with Curse. This is probably the one that I would recommend getting, if anything, if you're like, okay, I'm not going to go all in, and you still want her to be kind of viable. E2, the poison stacks applied to enemies by Fate's Descent and her Exalt are increased by 50%, with an additional 15% increase for each stack of Finale she has. The Finale cap of 10 is removed. E3, her strike and defense cards gain another 5% of their original ailments. The fixed damage of Illusion's End is increased from 25% to 30% and heals 30% of the team's lost HP. And her Overexalt gives 2 times more ailments to other team members. The team's poison, counter, and base damage are increased by 10%, and you get an additional stack of Finale in boss battles. The damage amplification of her base Exalt becomes permanent rather than temporary. If she's already in Finale form, she triggers 3% of all enemies' poison for every 10 ailments consumed. This is her main thing. This is what she's good at. If you have her at OE, you get these permanent buffs, and they do stack by 10. When I say cumulative, I mean cumulative. It's for your entire team. That is your damage amplification buff, poison counter. This is what makes her uber powerful. And you can melt your enemies. Alright, how does she fare? Though GDoll takes a while to build her OE without the right setup, she can be very useful in boss battles simply for her OE, Finale form, and healing. And I have resorted to her healing many times. It really is the OE that shines, unfortunately, though. For Covenants, I recommend using her with Re-Evolution for Ailmus, alongside an Ailmus battery wheel. Her signature, Mannequin of Oblivion, also works, but Incalculable Form, that's the one I go to. That's the one that I use, pretty much. But building her Ailmus earlier is usually higher priority. If she's not at OE, you could try Steppenwolf, but that's if you want to go all in on her poison output. How do I rate her? I like GDoll. I think good is good enough. She would be great, and she really is, but you have to invest so much to get there. You need so much investment, and I wish it wasn't, but yes, she will break your game a bit if you do get her there. Is she worth it? Who's to say?
降臨せよみんなが喜ぶかしら